Well, she's going to come visit. She lives not too far from me. We watch your podcast usually, so she knows about it. My daughter's my only concern is her a little bit self-important, and she has still has some questions. Tell me what. Oh no, I've done like 10 years. That's the place. It's right now you're just across from the airport, Majestic. However,
Good morning. And welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are so glad you are here. My name is Jeffrey Jacoby, and I'm a member of the worship team, the Story Troupe, Adopt a Plot, musicians of Emerson, and the Emerson Choir. I offer a special welcome to those of you joining us for the first time, either in person or online. Hello, online people. We are grateful you are here and look forward to getting to know you. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of each and every person through anti-racism, anti-oppression, support for the LGBTQ+ community, and other working for reproductive justice, voting rights, and other issues, as the world calls us to side with love. We seek to build a beloved community not only here, but in our surrounding area. Everyone is invited to join us for social time following the service. Those here in person are invited to join us for light refreshments in our fellowship hall that is on the first floor behind the sanctuary, right down this hall and to the door at the end of the hall. At 11:25, please join us for religious exploration and small group activities. There will be worship reflections here in the sanctuary. That's always really fun if you are very inspired or very interested in our sermon. Come back to the sanctuary, and if you have any thoughts, you can express them and share them with other people. And there will also be additional offerings listed in your order of service that you got. And if you're viewing online, we hope to meet you soon in the future here. And now we pause to light our chalice as a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. And our chalice lighter today is going to be Ali Tomic. Oh, here she comes. Thank you very much, Ali. Our chalice words today are from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s The American Dream speech given at Lincoln University in 1961. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. You can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. Thank you, Ollie. And now in the spirit of love and the beloved community, let's greet and welcome each other to this new day as we share our congregational affirmation, we need not think alike to love alike. In the spirit of love community, let's greet each other, and those in the sanctuary, please feel free to move around and offer greetings, and for those online, please use the chat to introduce yourself or unmute to say hello. Our opening words this morning are from Reverend Rebecca Savage. Ignite in us radical love. We join together today as a beloved people united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. When our chalice is lit, may it melt away the tethers that uphold the structures of racism in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. Our chalice is a vessel of audacious hope. Our chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals. And now, if you'll join us for our opening hymn, please stand in body or in voice and join us for our first hymn, Building a New Way. It's in the teal hymnal number 1017. I think we might have words on the screen. I'm not too sure, but if not, it's 1017 in the blue hymnal, Building a New Way.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Christina Branum-Martin. It is so good to be with you. I see new faces and people I haven't seen in a while, and it is just a joy to be with you this morning. We move into the time of acknowledging and holding the joys, the sorrows, and the concerns of this community. And we have rocks that are heavy and have weight, and yet they are smooth. They are indicative of the joys and the sorrows of our life. And we place them into water that absorbs and calms the things we carry. The first stone we place today is in honor of the Cherokee and the Muskogee nations, of the indigenous people who lived here before us. The second stone we place each week is for those who were wrongly enslaved and labored on this land for hundreds of years. And third, a big and heavy stone right now for all of the wars and conflicts around the world. We have quite a few things within our community that are written in our book, and know that you are invited at any time when you come in to put what you are carrying in your heart in this book. And if you are online, you can email them to pastoralcare@emersonuu.org. A sorrow from Karen Anderson Cordova is that my husband, Mark, was recently diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus, and we are hopefully starting treatment soon. Another sorrow from Loretta Jocelyn is that my 99-year-old mother passed away suddenly and without warning. And even though I am grief-stricken and heartbroken, I am grateful that she transitioned quickly and peacefully. Another concern by Whitney Barone is that this is the 1-year anniversary of my layoff from work, and I am praying that a new opportunity awaits me for growth. We do have a joy from Susan Tomachek that today is our 57th wedding anniversary. And I'll add that oy vey was written. Two more joys. Debbie Ballou says, my nephew is recovering well from surgery. Oh, and a sorrow that my mom is in the hospital and my brother-in-law needs another round of chemo. So much, Debbie. And a joy from Melanie LeMay and George Clear is that we are happy to have our childhood friend from Alabama, now living in Houston, visiting this weekend, Horace Burcham. So much joy, so much sorrow, so much concern for the world in which we live in, and we are here together to be holding it as a community. Would you put one last stone in for the things yet to be shared? Thank you. And we close each week with the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. Would you share in reading these words with me? May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we all be free from harm and suffering. May we all be well in body, heart, and mind. May we all be at peace. Blessed be and thank you. Share the basket.
On behalf of the Emerson Social Justice Team, I'd like to let you know that this week we continue to support lost and found youth. One way we put our prayer of loving kindness into action is by partnering with other organizations who work to bring love, kindness, and justice to the world. Lost and Found Youth is an Atlanta-based nonprofit that exists to end homelessness for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, LGBTQ, and all sexual minority youth by providing them with the skills and support needed to live independently. For those in the sanctuary, as the basket is passed, please feel free to offer a donation or see in your order of service other ways to give. The ushers will be coming down now with the baskets. For those online, go to emersonuu.org. Select the Giving tab to donate. In addition to cash donations, we are also collecting donations of lightly used clothing and food easily eaten by the unhoused. Items can be put in the foyer in the large tub labeled for donations. All donations, unless otherwise specified, are shared equally between Emerson and our partner organization. We thank you for whatever donation that you'd care to make.
Good morning. My name is Ed Cosper, and I give gratitude for the loving feelings within my soul. It's been almost 5 years since I walked through the doors here at Emerson. I entered not knowing what to expect. It had been over 50 years since I had last entered a house of worship. My heart was pounding as I ran through the mental checklist matching my wants and needs to what my senses were detecting. Perhaps you had a similar experience. After a warm welcome, which included a hug from Millie, I nervously tiptoed into the sanctuary. In fact, that seat right back there in front of Bellamy is where I took my first seat. And then Mark Horn, my newfound brother, approached me and he said, "You are welcome here." So I give the welcome here at Emerson a big thumbs up. Maybe I'm in the right place after all. The service began and I noticed no one was holding a Bible or a similar holy book. In place of a cross, there was a circular metal artwork that they lit with a simple flame. That's nice. And then you all said in unison, "We don't all have to think alike to love alike." Wow. You got me. That deserves a smiley face. And then out of the blue, they thrust a microphone. That's what they used to do with the new people in here. Okay. They thrust a microphone out to me and asked me to introduce myself. Being the quiet, shy, bashful, silent type, I hesitated for half a second or so and said, "I'm looking for a spiritual home where I can help make a difference while getting my soulful needs met." The entire congregation, meaning you, turned and stared at me, and I blushed and gently sat down. The choir was fantastic. The rest of the service was perfect, and no one was called a sinner. I wasn't even hearing standard church terms. Wow, this was feeling good. Another smiley face. The service ended, and they asked me, a diabetic, to join them for after-service treats in the fellowship hall. I smiled, gave a thumbs up, and a smiley face. Suddenly, I realized I had already given Emerson over a dozen thumbs up, and it was just my first day. I ran home and told Kathy that she's got to come. We talked for hours as I told her all about you. I was so excited. I was just thinking the other day about all the thumbs up and smiley faces I have given and received over these past few years. I was thinking about all the ways Emerson has enriched my life. Being a part of or helping with the justice team, standing with you out on the sidewalk shouting, "Black Lives Matter," adding my voice to immigration reform, marching as a group to the Marietta Square, making signs and singing freedom songs, contributing to the Must Food donation barrel. Okay. I promised I was gonna start doing better at putting the cans in the barrel. So, and I'd ask you, 2 cans a week will help us feed a lot of folks. But I must, before I forget, give thanks and a shout out to our AV team. Could we all give a thumbs up to the AV team? You guys do a fantastic job, and we sure do appreciate it. I love watching how folks take on roles on the Board of Trustees and Building and Grounds and the Safety Group and the Finance Committee, and of course our phenomenal hospitality team. A thumbs up, a smiley face, and a warm heart for the hospitality team. You can pick and choose to be involved in any of that, and we still have needs in every area. Get involved with our library group or just use the great resource there. Attend a Sage Cafe event. Train to be on the pastoral care team or to be a greeter. Sing in the choir or dust off your musical instrument and join in here. Help with our youth and their phenomenal activities and educational experiences. We have awesome youth here and a fantastic director in Michael Lukens. He's out today. Okay. Tell Michael I said good things about him. You can participate in sermon reflections or listening circle to let your voice be heard. Join the old men for the Romeo's lunch or the youngish adults for pub theology night. I have sat with our Buddhist group and shared new experiences with my pagan friends. I have shared and found comfort with our grief group. I found there are just so many ways for me to be involved here at Emerson, and I get to eat until I'm full at each and every potluck dinner. Gosh, we even eat during Waldo's concerts and after movies. A big thumbs up for all the opportunities to eat here at Emerson. Okay, let's make that 2 thumbs up. All right, I was thinking, how much would I need to pay for all that I have received from this wonderful community? I know that I give my time and energy, but there are still expenses like building and upkeep and utility expenses, and of course, we want to retain our quality administrative and ministerial staff. And who pays to repair the leak in the roof? Yeah, we got one. Where does the money come from for those unexpected repairs? You know, I don't hear us begging for money every week, though there are times I think perhaps we should. So it's that time of year when we are asked to consider our personal contribution towards our community. We are asked to pledge financial support for our next church year. This allows us to create a budget with knowledge of how much income to expect. Can we meet our expenses? Can we fund my vision of finding a way to expand the fellowship hall? Can I get an amen on that? Amen. Well, in closing, it's like I tell Kathy, that's my wife. You either got to sell more Talbot's clothes next year or we're going to have to cut up that Talbot's credit card because we need to give more money to Emerson. I love you guys.
Thank you, Ed. And now we've got a really great story, and Noel is going to read it for us. It's called Goodnight Racism by Ibram X. Kendi. And I just realized I forgot the head thing. So use that. Push it.
Well, the young and the young at heart, you guys already know the drill. You are so good. Please join me for the story for all ages. So, like the Reverend said, we'll be reading Goodnight Racism by Ibram X. Kendi, who's written other light reading like How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's not light reading, that was a joke. And it's illustrated by Kababi. I looked up how to pronounce that. Bayak. You can hold the pictures if you want. Okay. Outside the window, peeking down from the sky, the moon watches over us. She sees kids smiling at dinner tables. And yawning in their beds. But some kids don't have food, don't have beds, because of unfair rules and unjust treatment. The moon sees all kids, whoever they are, wherever they are, and shines her light on them. The moon wants her light to kiss every child goodnight. The moon delights when every child falls asleep. because the moon knows when we sleep, we dream. When we dream, we imagine what is possible, what the world can be, and the moon glows a little brighter, whispering, "Dream, my child. Imagine, my child. A new world, a new future awaits." A world where all people are safe, no matter how they look, no matter how they worship, no matter how they love. A world where all kids have the same chance to have peace, to have joy, to have a childhood. A world where all people breathe fresh air and have what they need to feed their minds and bodies. A world where our rules open doors, open minds, and create equity and justice for all. Dream, my child. Create, my child. A new world, a new future awaits. Good night, unfair rules. Good night, cruelty. Good night, injustice. Good night, inequality. Good night, hate. Good night, hurt. Good night, racism. Good night. There's actually a quote on the back, too, I think is worth sharing. Dreaming is power. Yeah. So if you get in trouble for nodding off during class, just tell your teachers, hey. But we all please join me for the song of dedication.
Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation, a moment where we can quiet our minds, quiet our bodies, and sit and feel ourselves held by the chair below us, the ground beneath our feet, and the warmth of this community. These words are by Kathleen Brolins. Spirit of justice, who befriends those who stand upon the constant edge of decision, crucial and alone, we are grateful to be together this morning. We gather especially to remember Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but not only for him. For there were thousands and thousands of unnamed men and women and children who put their bodies and lives on the line. They did so all may be free, and yet freedom comes with a cost. And we know that racism and homophobia, ageism and ableism, sexism and classism, all of these and many more often unacknowledged realities prevent us from fully knowing each other. They prevent us from creating beloved community, spoken of by prophets and ordinary people alike. This morning, may we focus on the work of King to continue to eradicate injustice wherever and whenever we encounter it. May we continue to speak out against injustice, to speak even when we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. May the Spirit of King continue to flow through our daily living, and may we have the courage of King as we continue to stand up for justice, reconciliation, and truth, despite challenge and controversy. King told us that he went to the mountaintop and that he saw the promised land. And he assured us that we will get there one day. May that be no paradisal dream, but a reality in our own time. May it be so. May it be so. Amen. I want to let you know that there is a reading that's listed in your order of service. We're going to skip it and save it for next week so that we have time for all of our words today. And next, Jeffrey will share some thoughts.
Thank you, Reverend Christina. I often wonder what our country would look like if the polls had been correct in 2016 and the presidential election results would have been for the other candidate. If we look at the campaign slogans of each candidate, one candidate's slogan was to make America great again, which seems to have fueled chaos, nationalism, and ended in the January 6th insurrection. But more than anything else, that administration seems to have inspired more division than greatness. The others was stronger together. This idea seems simplistic, but it's actually very powerful. The logic is there. If we are able to come together as a human race, not just one race or one class or one country, but as a human race, doesn't it make sense we would be stronger? If we all support each other regardless of race, wouldn't the world be a better place? There is no difference on the inside. We're all human beings with the same organs, and we all just want to live our lives knowing that we're safe, that we can access decent health care, that we can find a place to live and have food on the table at every meal. On the outside, we may look different, and of course, every person has their own set of ideas about what's important to them, their own set of ideas about their goals and dreams. But if we really were together as one, wouldn't it be great to be able to focus on our goals and dreams and assume that all those basic needs are well taken care of, and no lack, unfairness, or racism would interfere with this? If we were together, there'd be no need for dueling cable news networks to constantly fill us with fear about what the other side is planning to do or is attempting to take away from you. All of these things keep us apart and promote this idea that there is this other out there, and that's going to ruin your life if you don't stop them, arrest them, or deport them. There is no other. It's just us, humankind. We are all connected, all humans, regardless of race. When we hurt others, we only hurt ourselves. But when we rise up and help others, when we stick up for others, when we include others, we are also helping and supporting ourselves, and that makes us all stronger. We are strong. We all belong. We can be one.
Well, I think my sermon's already done. I don't know really if I could say much more. Thank you so much for sharing that. I might not be able to say much more, but today I have a lot of words from King, so I'm going to share them with you. Tomorrow, as our nation honors Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, this holiday raises up a man, a black man, as a symbol of nonviolence and racial justice. Our children learn about him in school, having heard at least in part some of the "I Have a Dream" speech. We probably know that he won the Nobel Peace Prize and won hundreds of other awards, earned a PhD, and was the face for racial equality and justice until his death in 1968. And King should rightly be honored. And King himself said in his sermon that he gave 2 months before his assassination that he didn't want to be honored for these things. He wanted to be remembered as someone who dedicated his life on a daily basis to serving others. At the time he shared this, King was in Memphis fighting for poor people, for trash haulers, and he had turned his attention against Vietnam, the war going on there, and began working to improve the lives of poor people, in addition to championing racial justice. King asked for all of us to have a revolution of values in America. He hoped that we would seek to build a broad, inclusive movement to include the poor and the impact on communities across the country that left them out of the services for all. Their name was the Poor People's Campaign. Did you know 2 years before he died, he was the lecturer for the Ware Lecturer at the General Assembly at the time of the Unitarians? This was before the merger of Unitarianism and Universalism. And the name of that lecture was perfect. Don't sleep through the revolution. And those directives that he gave then still ring through today. He said, "One of the great misfortunes of history is that all too many individuals and institutions find themselves in a great period of change, yet fail to achieve the new attitudes and new outlooks that situation demands. And there is nothing more sad or tragic than to sleep through the revolution. There can be no gainsaying of the fact that a social revolution is taking place today." And these were his words from that time. He continues, "We see it in the nations in the demise of colonialism, and we see it in our own nation in the struggle against racial segregation and discrimination. And as we notice this struggle, we are aware of the fact that a revolution is taking place in our midst." Couldn't that be today? Isn't it shocking that that was 58 years ago? King asked then, "What do we do when we find ourselves in such a period?" He said, "The church, the collective religious organizations of the lands, have a great responsibility because it is in church where, true to its nature, it stands as a moral guardian of the community and of society. And he says it has always been the role of the church to broaden horizons, to challenge the status quo, and to question the mores of the day. Still true as of today. The four things that he called upon for us to do then in 1966, he says first to remind us that we are all interconnected. He gave examples of ways we were neighbors and could support each other, or what happens when we don't. He said we must live together as neighbors or we will perish together as fools. And this is a fact of life. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. We know that as Unitarian Universalists today, our principles declare that we affirm the interconnectedness of each other and our belief in the world community of peace and liberty and justice. We still have work to do. The second thing King said is that he appealed to us that it was necessary for the church collectively to reaffirm over and over again in everything we do, including the ways we are with each other and the ways we teach our children, that racism is immoral. King declared that any church that did not actively work to address racism was, in fact, sleeping through the revolution. He said to remain awake is to refute the idea that there are superior people at all, and it is out of this notion that the whole doctrine of white supremacy came into being. He said, our religious organizations across the land must take a stand. They must take a stand not only in the ways we are with each other, but in the ways we teach our children. And we know that in 2024, this doctrine of white supremacy is still present. It really is in the water in which we swim. This was clear not only in the last presidential election, as Jeffrey was talking about, but even on January 6th and 21, which is still waiting for the balance of justice to be heard on this. Our current work as Unitarian Universalists is to address white supremacy in our person, in our congregations, in the communities in which we live, and in our society at large. The third thing that King said was that we must remain awake so that we can move not just into a place of talking and talking and talking about what to do, but actually doing it. Because it's not enough for us to just live in the ideology, he said. We must work towards taking out the vestiges of segregation and discrimination. The fourth point, the final point, he said, was to remain vigilant about the achievements of the day. He said there's a myth, the myth of exaggerated progress. And he was talking about the legislation that was passed in the 1960s about voting rights. He said we must realize that the plant of freedom is not the flower, but only the bud. King noted that although progress had been made up to that point in 1966, he begins this quote, "I am appalled that some people feel that the civil rights struggle is over because we have a 1964 civil rights bill. with 10 titles and a voting rights bill. And over again, I want you to look in the eyes of a black man and ask if everything is all right. And I would believe that if he were here today, he would say, I want you to look in the eyes of every person, especially those around us who live in the margins of all the kinds of margins we have, and ask that person, is it all right? And as Ed said earlier, does it sit right in your soul? He closed with a call to action. He said, I talk a great deal about the need for the kind of divine discontent, and I always want to mention that there are cliches and stereotypes and typical things that we say. He said, modern psychology has a word that has become common. It is the word maladjusted. It is a ringing cry of modern child psychology, and certainly we all want to live well-adjusted lives. But I must say to you this evening, my friends, there are some things in this nation and in our world which I am proud to be maladjusted about. He said, I call on you to be maladjusted and a people of goodwill to be maladjusted to those things that the good society is now finally realizing. He said, I never intend to adjust myself to discrimination. I never intend to become adjusted to religious bigotry. I never intend to adjust myself to economic conditions that will take necessities from the many to give luxuries to the few. I must honestly say, however much criticism it brings, I never intend myself to be adjusted to the madness of militarism and to the self-defeating effects of physical violence. It is no longer a choice between nonviolence and violence. It is now a choice between nonviolence and existence. His final words that night were, I have not despaired of the future. I firmly believe we can solve this problem, and I know there are difficult days ahead. There are days of glorious opportunity. Our goal for America is freedom. Abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with each other in this experiment called America. Before the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth, we are here. Before Jefferson etched across the pages the history, the words of the Declaration of Independence, we were here. Before the beautiful words of the Star-Spangled Banner were written, we were here. And for more than 2 centuries, our forebears labored without wages. They made cotton king. They built the home of their masters in the midst of the most oppressive and humiliating conditions. And yet, out of the bottomless vitality, they continued to grow and develop and live. We're going to win our freedom because both the heritage of our nation and our eternal will are embodied in the echoing demands. He said, we can sing, we shall overcome, because somehow we know that the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice. We will also be able to transform the discords of this nation into a symphony of brotherhood, which I would say a symphony of humanity in this day, and speed up the day when all God's children all over our nation and the world will be able to walk on this earth together. And he finished that night, free at last, thank God Almighty, free at last. May that be what you come together to do. And thank you. Those words still ring true to my heart. It was hard for me to not give the whole Ware lecture, but we don't have an hour and a half. On the 50th anniversary of his assassination in 2018, Reverend William Barber revived the Poor People's Campaign as a direct extension of King's work. And that new campaign was called the National Call for Moral Revival, and it picked up the unfinished pieces. Reverend Barber is still doing that work, and all across the country are protests and rallies and lots of acts of nonviolent civil disobedience. And those campaigns demonstrated the power of the people to be the agent of change in democracy. It is those efforts that give us the narrative of what it is to do, to move from the talking and the talking and the talking about to the doing together. I will continue talking about that next week as we talk about ways in which we can grasp and hold and heal democracy. I live in honor of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. in 2024 as a Unitarian Universalist and as a religious leader. In honor of his work, I will stay awake during the revolution. And I will work to change what is in my human heart. I will do this with my time and my energy. I will do this in all that we do with our children. And I will do this in our community at large, and I will do it with you. So today, I dedicate myself to this work again. Thank you, King, for reminding me of what I'm here to do. Join me, dear ones, for this is holy work. Let us close in singing. We are singing, Our World is One World, number 134, and there'll be words in just a moment. It is in your gray hymnal if you need the music.
Wash us round about the clouds and cover all.
extinguish the chalice in a minute, and I was wondering, Annabelle, would you like to put out the chalice for us? Thank you. I'm going to close with some of the words of our anthem. The whole anthem itself just made me tear up, but the last few lines. And these words will forever be within our hearts, and we'll teach them to our children, and we will remember them in our lives when we walk, when we sleep, when we rise. We are one. When we laugh, when we sing, when we cry, when we run, we are one. We close with the words of, we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. And share with me, these we carry in our hearts and out to the world until we are together again. Go now in peace and take peace wherever you go. Thank you.